Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Rain, wind, and snow. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Nearly 4 inches of snow are expected in our local mountains from this storm. KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen headed out to Mount Laguna to give us a look and says it won't last long.
I told my wife, let's come out to the snow.
Today's storm means no work for Richie Bugarin.
Snowboarding right here.
Because he works in construction, he, his wife, and their friend came to Mount Laguna today for the first snow of the season.
Today was super awesome. When we were driving, there was actually snow falling, so it was a cool experience.
Out on Mount Laguna, families were enjoying the snow, sledding, building a snowman, and having snowball fights.
All right.
Emily Mester loves coming up here on the first snow day of the year.
Well, every year it's a tradition of mine. I love to come up here and hang out and just see this beauty. Nobody knows that in San Diego we get snow, so it's pretty much my favorite thing. I love telling people, so being up here is really awesome.
You can see it over here.
But not everyone is a fan. This is 2-year-old William Pham's first time seeing snow.
Well, he's a little bit afraid when we slide out from there, but basically he likes the snow. He keeps picking up the snow and play with it, but kind of afraid when he slides with me.
It's the first snow of the season, and as you can see, Mount Laguna looks like a winter wonderland. But if you want to come up here, you better put on some chains because the roads are getting icy. Mester says the roads were more icy on this first day of snow than in previous years.
It's actually a lot more ice and stuff on the snow. We didn't really slip too much, so that was only benefit, I guess, but we're about to put on chains and just be more cautious.
But if you want to play in the snow, you better do it soon. Meteorologists don't expect it to stay on the ground past Wednesday. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
And we're not the only ones seeing the effects of this major storm sweeping through. Coming up, a look at the impact in Northern California, as well as your complete weather forecast. There has been progress in the University of California strike, but it's not over yet. A quarter of the striking academic workers ratified a new contract over the weekend, but 36,000 teaching assistants and graduate student researchers are still without a contract, and those unions have put their picket lines on hold for the winter break after agreeing to mediation with university negotiators. KPBS education reporter MG Perez introduces us to some of them who say they will not give up what they consider a fight for their lives.
25-year-old Anoop Pratura is an accomplished musician who riffs on his electric guitar in the comfort of his North Park apartment he shares with a roommate. He's also an avid surfer, and he is one of the thousands of graduate student researchers and teaching assistants still on strike at UC San Diego.
We're doing world-class research in our labs. We're providing some of the best teaching that you can get anywhere in the country. You know, all of that is given by graduate students. I wish I understood the disconnect of why I was forced to live in my car, other than the fact that the UC will do anything it can to, you know, not pay us the wages that we deserve. They used to have a mattress sitting up here, then down in here, have a water tank.
Pratura was homeless and lived in his Toyota Tacoma for almost 2 months this past summer because the apartment near campus he shared with 3 roommates was destroyed in a flood caused by a sewer line break, which left him with nowhere to go but his car.
And it just kind of was like a week-by-week thing where I kept thinking that, you know, by next week I'll find a place that I can afford and I'll be able to move out of here. And, you know, just with how little money I was making, I just couldn't even qualify to apply to most places.
And while he was homeless trying to survive, he also got COVID. UC academic workers only make between $24,000 and $30,000 a year. That's at the heart of the labor dispute, still unresolved for most of them.
It's just very expensive to buy a car and, keep it up, and I don't feel like I could do that financially.
Ahmed Akhtar moved from Chicago to San Diego almost 6 years ago. He's never been able to afford a car. He is a graduate researcher working on a PhD in physics, and his housing scholarship will soon run out. Desperate for security, Akhtar and his colleagues formed a new union last year called Student Researchers United. Teaching assistants and postdoctorate researchers were already unionized under the United Auto Workers of America. The new union is also under the UAW, which adopted the academic members, giving them immediate and significant financial and bargaining power.
For the longest time, student researchers didn't have a union. We didn't have this tool for getting rights, for enforcing our rights, for protecting our rights, and now we do.
I was told to announce that there's going to be an info session.
The strikers are also fighting for better working conditions. They want learning and research environments free of harassment and bullying, alleged by union members to be common among tenured professors and administrators. International students want protection from unjustified threats of having their visas revoked without cause. Varun Ramaprasad is here from India. He is willing to accept the risk of joining the union and being visible on the picket lines.
I think it will be worth it. I think we have already made huge gains, but the UC is trying to not negotiate and then not try to give us what we deserve, but we are going to keep fighting for it.
This is a fight for survival, and this is a fight that we're going to win.
Anup Pratora is grateful to be housed and healthy again. He's not sure the dream of getting his doctorate is still moving in the same direction. It could be on hold for a bigger purpose, to help prevent others from suffering his pain and past.
I want to fight to build a system, a coalition, a union where people don't have to go through that.
That is another kind of riffing he is committed to continue.
If it wasn't for my community, I don't know how I would have made it. And that's why, something like a union is so important to me, because that is the essence of community and how community can be there for you.
MG Perez, KPBS News.
There's a push by some students in the UC system to get their money back. A petition on moveon.org is close to its goal of 3,000 endorsers. It calls for a tuition refund for every day affected by the strike going back to November 20th. Those behind the petition say they blame the UC Board of Regents for allegedly not bargaining in good faith with the union. The city of San Diego swore in its 74th city council today, and as KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer tells us, for the first time ever, all the council members are Democrats.
San Diego's newest city council member was sworn in by the first non-white person ever elected to the council.
That I will support and defend.
95-year-old Tom Hom, who was elected in 1963 and later went on to the state assembly.
The Constitution of the United States.
Kent Lee will represent Council District 6 and says he's grateful and humbled by his new role.
Many people have talked about this district being an Asian empowerment district because it is 41% Asian American Pacific Islander, and that's certainly not lost on me as well. I understand that that is a significant component of what this district has represented, and I look forward to making sure that we carry those voices forward within the city. But really, at the end of the day, ensuring that we serve all of our residents within the city of San Diego and within the district.
While the city council is nonpartisan, for the first time in city history, the council members are all Democrats. Chris Cate, who was termed out, was the only Republican on the council.
And while the council itself looks quite different from when I first started, I found that it is possible to have differences in opinion with my colleagues and still find a way to deliver for this city.
Also taking the oath of office on Monday, council members Jennifer Campbell, Monica Montgomery Stepp, and Vivian Moreno, who were all elected to second terms.
Congratulations.
Lee says he looks forward to joining the other incumbent council members and has his top priorities in order.
Homelessness has grown to be a bigger challenge each and every day here in the city of San Diego. And what that also really means is that we must do something in terms of the actual housing that we can deliver for San Diego residents so that people can live, play, and enjoy working in San Diego. And what's most important to that is that we need to ensure that there's housing that's going to be affordable for many of the middle-income working families that we have throughout the city.
The city council's leadership won't change this year. The council members voted unanimously to re-elect District 9's Shawnee Lo Rivera as the council president. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Newly elected Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is getting right to work after being sworn in as the city's first female mayor. She was sworn in by the country's first female vice president, Kamala Harris, on Sunday. In her first official act as mayor today, Bass has declared homelessness as a state of emergency. She says her mandate is to move Los Angeles in a new direction with urgent and strategic approach to solving one of the city's toughest challenges.
It is a humanitarian crisis that takes the life of 5 people every day. In every neighborhood, we can see the failures of the status quo: despair, desperation, human suffering.
Approximately 42,000 people are unhoused in Los Angeles. With the declaration, Bass can take more executive action to fight homelessness, but the city council will have to approve it every 30 days. Congress is facing a looming government shutdown at the end of the week. The House and Senate must pass a short-term extension before Friday at midnight so negotiators can come up with a full-year funding deal. Also on the table, the National Defense Authorization Act, the massive annual must-pass defense policy bill. It already passed the House and is expected to get a vote in the Senate this week. The White House is asking Congress for more than $3 billion to increase border security. A Trump-era order put in place during the pandemic has turned away millions of migrants over concerns about spreading COVID-19. But a federal court has now blocked the provision known as Title 42, and the government will lift the order this month. Border agents say they are seeing an increase in people trying to enter the United States. California utility regulators moved this month to prepare for the state's transition away from natural gas. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has details.
The California Public Utilities Commission passed new rules that require utilities to seek approval for individual natural gas projects that are worth more than $75 million or have a significant impact on air quality. Commissioner Cliff Rechtschaffen says the change gives regulators a chance to consider if the spending is needed as California moves away from natural gas.
We want to make sure that as we transition, we're only investing in new gas projects that are critical for safety or reliability, and we're not throwing good money after bad. We're not investing in new projects that could shortly become stranded assets that ratepayers are saddled with.
Before the rule change, natural gas projects were approved or rejected as part of a utility's general rate increase request. Rechtschaffen says that means many natural gas projects didn't get individual attention that regulators are now asking for.
For significant new gas infrastructure projects, either ones that are above a certain monetary threshold or that have certain environmental triggers, utilities have to come to the California Public Utilities Commission and seek individual approval and go through environmental review before the projects can go forward.
Utilities will have to demonstrate the need for the projects and justify the impact on rates in order to get approval. Emergency projects would be exempt. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Nuclear fusion has been called the holy grail of clean energy. For decades, scientists have tried to replicate the fusion that powers the sun, and they just made a big breakthrough. The U.S. Department of Energy is reportedly set to announce scientists have produced the first ever nuclear fusion reaction, resulting in a net energy gain. And that means the reaction creates more energy than it uses. According to the Washington Post, scientists at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in Northern California made the discovery, and an announcement is expected tomorrow. NASA's Orion spacecraft successfully splashed down off the coast of Baja California after flying around the moon on a test flight. Isabel Rosales has more on the successful Artemis 1 mission.
Good descent rate, 500 feet. Splashdown.
NASA's Orion spacecraft making an ocean splashdown after a 25-and-a-half-day mission around the moon. The historic Artemis 1 test flight aimed to test out harsh environments of deep space and to demonstrate the capsule could make a safe return back into Earth's atmosphere.
It was confident, but it was tense, because there were two big things that had to happen today.
Temperatures around the
First of all, the heat shield had to work, and it worked perfectly. And then the parachutes had to work.
And we're on main.
And they did perfectly.
During the test mission, no astronauts were on board. Only a few mannequins were used to gather data. The mission comes to a successful end after 4 delayed launch attempts.
We're going back to the moon, but this time not to just stay there and come back.
Next up, NASA plans to use the data collected on this mission to choose a crew for the Artemis 2, which could take off in 2024. And then NASA aims to send astronauts back to the moon in 2025, putting the first woman and first person of color on the lunar surface.
We are on our path to getting that base on the moon, to getting the understanding we need to go on to Mars, and doing the science that's front and center here in our program.
Isabel Rosales, KPBS News.
Holiday spending is looking quite different this year for millions of middle-class families. A poll by Quinnipiac shows nearly half of Americans have less in savings than they did just a year ago, thanks to the highest inflation since the 1980s. The National Retail Federation says holiday shopping has not slowed, but 42% of Americans plan to spend less on gifts this year, and 8% showed they plan to spend more. You can pack, you can prep, you can get to the airport 5 hours early, but sometimes what you can't control cancels your flight. Karen Kaifa has advice from the experts on how to manage that holiday travel hassle.
You may be dreaming of a white Christmas, but for the millions of Americans taking to the skies this holiday season, snow in the forecast could turn that dream into a nightmare.
Weather changes everything, so that's really going to be the killer.
Experts say a little preparation can go a long way. Clint Henderson, managing editor of The Point Sky, says knowledge is power when hitting the friendly skies.
Know what other airlines fly the route that you want to fly. If things go sideways, you're able to rebook yourself.
He recommends downloading the airline's app and following them on social media to get the latest updates on any delays, cancellations, or system meltdowns that can cripple air traffic. And avoid potential catastrophe by booking direct flights. Plan for a hotel stay if you get stranded, and keep a flexible itinerary. If your plans do go awry, be your own best advocate.
If your flight gets canceled, you really want to be the first one who gets a hold of customer service to get rebooked on one of those few seats that are still available.
Airlines, too, may be more prepared for the holiday travel rush after last year's Christmas time COVID surge saw airlines crushed with staff shortages.
They are staffed somewhat better. They have reduced flights. So there's more give in the system. There's less likely to be a domino effect.
And to avoid additional angst at the airport, be sure to arrive early, avoid checking your bags, and take advantage of programs like TSA PreCheck or Clear to get through security with a little less stress. In Washington, Karen Kaifa, KPBS News.
We're watching a powerful winter storm system moving across the country. Mike Valerio has a look at the winter weather that arrived in California this weekend and what's still ahead.
A ski lift tempest-tossed in South Lake Tahoe, the majestic mountains in California and Nevada setting the scene for the opening act of a major winter storm.
It's going to be powder town up here. We've got a lot of snow coming through. I mean, we've seen reports anywhere from 24 inches, over 36 inches. It's going to be a big one.
Just look at this incredible time lapse from Idaho. As the mountain peaks fade in and out of view, more than 20 inches of snow pile up, reaching the very top of the ruler. After dark today, the potential for dangerous tornadoes developing across parts of the southern plains, with the system moving as far east as Florida by Friday. Meantime, back east, a taste of winter weather from separate snowfalls this weekend. Travel troubles affecting D.C., New York, and New England. An announcement made in Boston that no one wanted to hear.
There was a queue of planes that had to be de-iced, and all of the gates were backed up.
Mike Valerio, KPBS News.
Lots of recent impacts with wet and wintry and windy weather. Well, the mountain snow is going to start to wind down tonight. Still talking about some choppy surf. In fact, high surf advisories up as you work your way north towards Santa Barbara, Huntington Beach, Los Angeles County beaches here throughout the evening. And we're going to stay cool even as the weather turns more tranquil down the road. Well, winter storm warnings are expiring right around 10 o'clock this evening. We've talked about the heavy snow, especially above 4,500 feet toward Pine Valley, Mount Laguna, but that moisture is going to start to slide its way in an easterly fashion. So we'll start to see some improvement with that regard tonight, but still cold. We're talking about lows dropping in the 20s toward Mount Laguna. Oceanside down the 30s, so some chill out there. Make sure you have the jacket. San Diego, Chula Vista falling off into the mid-40s. Here's a look at futurecasts as we go through time. We'll start to see that precipitation sliding its way out east. Not looking overly active as we go into Tuesday, but it's going to stay on the chilly side. That's right. Big dip in the jet stream. Highs running 5, 10, even 15 degrees below normal. Just reinforcing that cold that we'll have in place. And highs are going to stay in the 50s. We're not climbing out of the 50s toward Ramona, mid-50s on tap. Borrego Springs, low 60s. Mount Laguna, sunshine returning barely up into the 40s. We're going to stay dry but chilly as we work our way into Wednesday. So venturing our way into midweek and even late week, now we're going to see that big dip in the jet stream begin to slowly progress its way off toward the east. All right, what does that mean for the coast? Well, gradually we'll start to see those temperatures climbing. Despite some clouds in place, we're back into the 60s going into Wednesday and Thursday. Meanwhile, interior valleys also looking at some sunshine, climbing temperatures as the week wears on. Improvement throughout the mountains, up to 50 as we work our way into Thursday. And over the deserts, also notice those temperatures climbing back through the 60s. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Povick.
In Mexico City, people gathered at Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe to celebrate the Saints' Feast Day. That's where some 500 years ago, the Virgin Mary is said to have appeared to Juan Diego, an indigenous man in rural Mexico. She asked that a church be built for people of faith, and some 20 million people visit the shrine every year. Faith leaders and migrant activists celebrated La Posada Fronteras over the weekend. It's a traditional Latin American Christmas party held each year at the Binational Friendship Park. KPBS's Matthew Bowler shows us how a possible border wall expansion is threatening the tradition.
A traditional Christmas posada, a coming together of the migrant community. Francisco Moreno Barron is Tijuana's bishop. He says Christmas is a time to remember migrants.
La familia del niño Jesús, de María y de José, es una familia migrante.
For 29 years, this posada has brought people to both sides of the border to share in the tradition. But now, the U.S. side is facing closure. The Biden administration is considering an addition to the existing border wall. That extension was first proposed by the Trump administration. It could close the American half of Friendship Park. Choir leader Janelle Garcia says closing the park is the opposite of what she thinks Americans want.
I think they would be more humble and understanding because the U.S. was formed with migrants.
Father Patrick Murphy has been working at the Casa del Migrante, or House of Migrants, in Tijuana for 10 years.
It's really cruel to stop this.
He says a posada is more than just a party.
Making room at the inn, in your heart, or in a physical place, in a spiritual place.
He spoke directly to Biden.
Open your heart. You know what's right to do. Don't look for political solutions. Don't worry about numbers. Don't worry about being the next president. You're president today. You could help a lot of people. Ronald Reagan, a Republican, helped a lot of people. What will they say about Biden when he finishes? That he helped a lot of migrants?
Over the empty space in between the double-layered barrier, the two groups shared a song. The Pidiendo Posada, or Begging for Shelter. It's a traditional Mexican Christmas song. First, those in Tijuana sang. Then those over the wall in the United States. taking turns, verse by verse, hoping next year will be the 30th annual Posada Sin Fronteras. Matthew Bowler, KPBS News.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, an investigation reveals how the U.S. failed to stop a deadly opioid from flooding into the nation. That's coming up at 7 right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here's another look at today's top stories. An early winter storm brought some needed rain to the region and snow to our mountains. Today, families were enjoying a snow day on Mount Laguna. And if you're thinking about heading up the mountain, remember to bring chains as the roads are icy and the snow isn't expected to stay on the ground past Wednesday. And a quarter of the striking University of California academic workers ratified a new contract over the weekend. However, there are 36,000 teaching assistants and graduate student researchers still on strike statewide. Those unions have put their picket lines on hold for the winter break after agreeing to mediation with university negotiators. And here is a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. An inflation status check. NPR's Morning Edition will have an update on a key metric that tells us if inflation is cooling down in the U.S. And on KPBS Midday Edition, the rollout of transitional kindergarten, the unintended consequences that are popping up for existing child care providers. And as always, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.